All right, sixth graders, this is to help you with question 2 on CR 11B. It says 1/4 divided by 1/2. I'm going to show you a couple different methods. I think I'll just show you 2. So let's talk about method 1. Method 1 is what your math teachers would call the standard algorithm. You take 1/4 divided by 1/2. To figure out how many halves would fit into a fourth, what you do, some of your teachers call it keep, change, flip. So we have 1/4, you keep the first fraction, you change your division to multiplication, then you flip over your second fraction. 1/2 becomes 2/1. Then you can multiply straight across the top, straight across the bottom. Now, you could also simplify at this point, but for a lot of students, they choose to multiply straight across the top. 1 times 2 is 2. 4 times 1 is 4. And then they simplify. So they say, what's a number that divides nicely into both 2 and 4? Can divide the numerator and denominator. It has to be by the same number. Oh, 2 divided by 2 is 1. 4 divided by 2 is 2. So your correct answer is 1/2. All right, method 2. Some of you really like to find a common denominator. So if you have 1/4 divided by 1/2, you could find a common denominator. What finding a common denominator allows you to do is to divide straight across the top, straight across the bottom. So if you find a common denominator, you're like, what would be the common denominator between 2 and 4? Oh, 4. Both 2 and 4 go into 4. So I can multiply this and this by 2, the numerator and denominator of this by 2. So then I have 1/4 divided by 1 times 2 is 2. 2 times 2 is 4. All right. So at that point, because we found a common denominator, we can now divide straight across the top, straight across the bottom. So the answer is, on top you have 1 divided by 2, but look at this, 4 divided by 4 is just a fancy form of 1. 4 divided by 4 is 1. So now you have 1 divided by 2. And how can we rewrite 1 divided by 2? Divided by is our fraction bar. So 1 divided by 2 is 1/2. We could get crazy. Now, the third method, I'm not great at yet. So I need you to know that. One of the sixth graders is helping teach me this method. But method 3, that I wasn't even going to show you because I'm not great at it yet, is using models. So if we want to know how many halves fit into 1/4, your teachers would have you break a diagram up into fourths. So we have 1, 2, 3 fourths. And the question is, how many halves would fit into 1/4? Well, this is what 1/4 looks like. This whole thing is what 1/2 looks like. So how many halves fit into a fourth? Oh, if you look at this half, how many halves fit into 1/4? Half of a half fits into a fourth. Because if this from here to here is 1/2, how many halves fit into only 1/4? Half of a half fits into 1/4. Now I have to tell you, because I'm still working through this method, there is a way that you can draw it out and really have the picture be powerful, but I'm just not there yet. So I look at it this way. I have a fourth, and how many halves fit into that fourth? Well, if I look at my halves, only half of that fits into a fourth. Still working on method 3, so maybe you've paused the video long ago and no one even knows how much I'm still trying to work through the drawing. But your final answer is 1/2. I'm pretty confident of that based on standard algorithm, based on common denominator. And even for me, the picture is making sense. I'm not sure it makes sense to everyone. Half of a half fits into a fourth.